Hello, and welcome to Bad Lit Friends, a podcast about writing that barely knows what it's doing. I'm Meagan Thompson-Mann. This is my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kirk Rafferty.
We are two writers who have known each other for over 15 years, not originally as writers, although we met through a writing capacity. We were both originally posters on an internet forum and then became shit posters on that internet forum. That is how we bonded. I am a writer of upmarket fiction, the pretentious spot between commercial fiction and literary fiction, in that I write with a lot of highfalutin words, but there is plot to my writing. I do not have an agent, but I am querying my first novel, which is called This Ends Now. It is women's fiction nominally, in that it is about a woman doing things.
Nominally, that's one of them big words. Nominally.
Yeah. Nominally, yeah. I do use a lot of big words. I can't help myself. I'm sorry. But right now I am halfway through my first draft of my second novel, which is currently called Surface Tension. It is in the same universe as the first novel, but takes place about 15 years before the events of that novel.
I don't write literary anything. I write historical fiction, primarily like historical Cold War fiction. I do have an agent. I'm represented by Jessica Berg at Rosecliff Literary, and I signed with her about, I think close to a year ago now. We got my first book put out on sub. My first book is called The Cosmonaut. It is a historical fiction novel set in 1961. I currently, actually just 2 days ago, 3 days ago maybe, I handed in my second novel, which is also a historical Cold War novel set in 1950. So that's where I am in my publishing journey.
There are so many podcasts out there that are fantastic, and they're really good from the viewpoint of telling writers, aspiring authors, how to do what they're trying to do. We are not that podcast.
We are not.
We are two people who are trying to figure out what they're doing, failing a lot, flailing a lot, really trying. And we think that our audience is people who are possibly not as ham-fisted at all of this as we are, but are like us in that they're trying to figure out what they're doing.
And not only do we not know what we're doing, but we have thoughts.
Many thoughts. Some of them are even right. You may be offended. I'm certainly offended by a number of my own thoughts. So hopefully you'll join with us in that. This is really a space for people who are trying to figure out this whole writing journey. I just want to say a little bit more about how I got to know Kirk. As I said before, we met on an internet forum. It was about immigrating to the US. I was at that time living in the UK and moved back to the US with my then husband, who was from the UK. Even after that relationship ended, I couldn't quite quit this dumb forum because it was an opportunity for me as a frustrated writer to write about my very bad opinions about pretty much everything, most of them having nothing to do with immigration. Kirk also was in this space. I liked his writing from the beginning, and that's really how I got to know him, was through the written word.
It was actually quite a number of years too before either one of us realized the other was a writer.
It was a very long time. I think probably about a decade. One day, Kirk said to me, "Well, I have a secret. I've been writing a book." And I said, "Oh my God, of course you're writing a book." And I had been writing secretly myself for some time. My second go around at law school, I had done it in the UK. And then when I moved back to America, I had to go back to law school and do it all over again. And without law school and without studying for the bar exam, I didn't quite know what to do with myself and all of this free time. So I started writing, and I ended up writing about 500,000 words in a universe, and they're all out on the internet if you want to try and find them. And hearing Kirk say that he was writing a novel gave me the courage to start doing it myself. So I wrote one.
And it's really good.
Thank you. As is yours.
Thank you. That's the other reason we're doing this podcast is to just massage each other's egos.
Absolutely. We're very good about that because we're not very good at telling ourselves that we're competent at it. Even though occasionally, I don't know about you, but I do have these little flare ups where I think, wow, that was actually good. And then I think, stop it. It's not good. So, but it's good to have a cheering section.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe that can be like the first take is that, yeah, get a cheering section. Like if you're a writer, try not to keep it a secret. I kept it a secret for a really long time. It does nobody any good. Whether that's a writing group, whether that's just friends, and especially friends who will tell you that your terrible writing is amazing. Like that's a good way to start out. Get that kind of ego
You love
massage
those people
to
more.
keep you
Those are
writing.
the people you love the most.
Yes.
I'd been a writer from when I was a child, but I took a big break in my early adulthood for a number of reasons. As a child, I was very out there and very proud of being a writer. It was my identity. This is all I wanted to do with my life. And that kind of brings us to the question that we are posing in today's debut episode. Are we writers if we're not writing? We hear all the time that writers always need to be writing. Right? It's this write or die. And it's not realistic to always be writing because, well, we have lives. That's something I think that we want to explore right now is deconstructing this myth that real writers write every day. Real writers are constantly doing writing things. If they're not doing these things, who are they? Kirk is further along in this journey than I am. And I know that he does so much stuff. And I look at it and I go, oh my God, I'm just exhausted thinking about it.
Me too. I'll start by saying that one of the first craft books that I ever read, and I'm sure it's many people's first craft book, is Stephen King's On Writing.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen King has a lot of hot takes on there. And one of them is not only write every day, but, make it a habit. Sit down at 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever, like you're at your desk, you're writing, you're putting down words, and you're also doing a word count, whether that's 200, 1,000, whatever. And so when I started really taking writing seriously, that was my thought was, I need to make this a habit. Quite frankly, I just could not do that. I could not turn it into an everyday at your desk, sitting down at 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever time to do it. And I mean, I did feel like a failure. So I felt like I was not a real writer. I'm not sure what happened kind of in between that. I do still try to write often. I don't berate myself anymore if I skip a day, if I skip a week. It is in the back of my head that, I do need to kind of pick up the pace a little bit. I have an agent now who expects the next thing, right? So that gives me a little bit of impetus. But I also have this kind of drive going too, that when I get excited about writing a book, I want to see it through to completion. And so if I'm in the middle of a project, I feel a little bit more of a drive. I'm actually in between books right now. I'm still kind of trying to come up with the next idea. Yeah, I'm not sitting down writing. I am thinking about writing, I guess. And
it counts as writing.
That's okay. This is me pontificating. But where I think a writer gets themselves in trouble is getting down in the weeds. I met a person at Pike's Peak Writers Conference who was just talking about their book, very passionate about their book. I think I might have even asked, like, yeah, how far into it are you? Something like that. Oh, I'm still researching it. I'm still like getting all of my ideas. And then it came out that like they haven't put a single word down on this.
Wow.
They've just been thinking about it. And I think that as writers, we can really fall into that trap where we do think thinking is writing. To an extent it is, but at some point you got to start putting words on paper. Now maybe those words on paper are your research, right? And that's fine. Like as a historical novel writer, I'm huge into research. And I think that definitely counts. But at some point, if you want to be a writer, like you have to actually like do the thing.
Yeah. It becomes, the paralysis of analysis, right? It's you spend so much time thinking about the process that the thinking about it becomes the satisfying portion of it, not the writing. The writing sometimes can be painful. I mean, there's no two ways about it. There are days that I sit down and the well is dry. And then it's, how do I prime the pump? Right? It's slogging through because I know from experience that if I allow myself to get distracted by researching, that I'm never going to get back to the writing of it. Because it can be so pleasurable, because I can fall down any number of really interesting, Google holes. I'm writing a book that right now is set in 2008, 2009. So we're talking about the Great Recession, what happened when the banks started to fail. Even though I lived through that and I used to work in the investment space during that time, I have to remind myself of what happened. And then I'm like, oh, oh yeah, I remember when that happened. Oh yeah. And then the next thing I know, I'm reading about Glass-Steagall, and I've been like reading about it for half an hour. And I was just thinking, when am I going to write about this dumb bitch that I'm writing about? It's like, she's a cautionary tale about what happens when very intelligent women forget that they can make really bad decisions. You can have total agency and still make very bad decisions. I've been thinking about, like, how do I get myself motivated to write on days when I just want to do the research?
Yeah. How do you get motivated?
Reminding myself that I've done this before. When I was writing my 500,000 word magnum opus, I did sit down every single day for about 2 years and write at least 1 page a day. This was the thing that I did. I made myself do it. Sometimes those words were good, and more often than not, they were bad. And that's okay. I am a recovering perfectionist. I try to fight against my natural inclination to edit as I go along.
Yes.
I will never be one of those people who does vomit drafts, but I also have been trying to give myself more grace, because when I do give myself the grace to be wrong about things, the words do come. I try so much to just, oh, this needs to come out so perfectly. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Nobody's seeing those words but you. So be kinder to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I will profess to being one of those types of people where I do need to get the words on the page from page 1 to page whatever says the end, because what I find happens if I start going back to edit, I start crawling down that rabbit hole. And then I lose momentum for the actual book. I actually discovered that with my first book. I think I wrote that book maybe 5 times or something. It was crazy. Because I would get myself so twisted around, like just trying to make something perfect, when really what I needed to do was get the story on the page. And so with my second book, I just got it all down. Almost stream of consciousness just kind of kept going. And it was an absolute mess. When I started going back to edit it, I couldn't believe just how garbage it was. The ideas were there. I loved the ideas. I loved my characters. It was a fairly solid plot, although I did find myself with some plot holes that also needed to be fixed. But the writing was just, a dumpster fire. It was terrible. But at least I had something to edit, right? I think somebody said, like, you can't edit a blank page, right? Those words were down, yeah.
When I was writing my first book, it actually came out of a writing circle that I'm still a member of, that during the pandemic, I took a course through the Oxford University Extension program about fiction writing, and I met some wonderful people on there, and we write together. And my book came out of our writing prompts. I wrote a chapter and didn't realize that I'd written a chapter of a book until I'd written 4 chapters about the same people and thought, oh, I've got a book. And so it was all over the place. I wrote the ending towards the middle. I wrote all these chapters completely out of sequence, and then realized, wow, now I need to put some chapters to kind of link all these things up. This one I'm just writing straight through. And as a result, it's coming a lot faster because I already know the plot. I am a pantser by inclination. If listeners are not familiar with these terms, this is, of course, a hot take, but there are 3 types of writers. There are planners, people who plan everything out, have a beautiful outline, many, many bullet points. Everything makes sense. They know their lore, they know their characters, they know everybody's inclinations, they know, when they were born, everything. Then there are pantsers, people who fly by the seat of their pants and have absolutely no idea what they're doing when they sit down to write. That's me. And then there are the plantsers, the people who start out with something of a plan and then, things go awry. I am trying to be a plantser now. I do have an outline. This was very radical for me, and it was terrifying when I produced it because I thought, who am I? I don't know who I am anymore. Because I'd always been somebody who, the way I describe it is, I just transcribe what my characters are telling me the story is. I just tune the radio. To know what happens at the end of a book is terrifying to me, but I know what happens. I'm not going to tell right now, but it is interesting to kind of adjust my worldview on writing. this far along into my process, but it does work. Kirk is the one who encouraged me to do this, and he was 100% correct. Round of applause. So,
yay, Kirk.
Yay. You're right about something, right? So,
yeah, and I would say that I started as more of a planner. I am kind of evolving into more of a plantser. My current book, I actually have a very soft outline. If you compare the outline of my first book to the outline of my current book, this is a much softer outline. And what I found was that it gave me a lot more leeway into some changes that I mix. And Rylan, our producer, who is also my daughter, can tell you there was this one really big plot point. I was discussing it with her and I liked it. It was a really good plot point. And she kept coming back to me and saying, yes, it's good, but it's a little soft. She made some great points about it. And I was like, yeah. And then I came up with this crazy idea. And if I'd have outlined this as hard as I outlined my first book, it would have been really difficult to put this new idea into it. Love this new idea, and she helped me come up with it. So
I think you make a good point about having somebody to bounce ideas off of is so important. My writing circle, they get all of my chapters, and sometimes I terrify them because I'll send them 4 and they're like, oh my God, now I have to read 70 pages. I hate you. But there is nothing as satisfying as hearing all of the ways that you are wrong from people whose opinion you trust, because you know that it's coming from a place of good faith, people who are actually reading and reading for content and reading for style, and people whose own work you trust and enjoy yourself. In addition to my writing circle, I have a couple of alpha readers, good friends, and getting to hear from them, oh my God, when are you giving me another chapter, is so satisfying.
Yeah. It really is.
Getting to plunk down printouts in front of my friends when we go out for dinner and go, here you go. Here's 3 chapters. And then, it is, there's nothing like. I have a friend whose daughter is almost 14 now, or I think she just turned 14. She will not allow her daughter to read my chapters, which means I'm doing something right. So I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I'm not writing YA. Excellent. I'm writing important, serious fiction for adults that talks about, Paris Hilton, as we were discussing this morning.
Serious literary works.
Yes. Very serious. But, one of the other things that we were talking about was the writer adjacent work that isn't writing. So there's all the other stuff that you're expected to do on top of writing.
Like podcasts.
Like social media. I am not a social media person. I've had to retrain myself to be one. I left Facebook in a dramatic huff. It was just like, I am so done with everybody having an opinion about any stray comment that I make, that I just said, I'm out of here. But I joined Bluesky because I realized I need to have people realize that I actually am doing something that is writing the book I'm writing now, about the book that I did write. And I have made myself into a person who now posts on social media almost every single day. I am a very private person, which you wouldn't guess from a podcast host, but it's me fighting against my natural inclinations. It's exhausting. It's not just posting your own stuff. It's engaging with other people, because what you're doing is you're building your tribe. You are not operating out there in splendid isolation, expecting everyone to just know how brilliant you are.
And I like that you use the word tribe instead of audience, right? Because that's the mantra out there is, you need to build your audience. You need to build your audience. And as somebody who is kind of stepping up on this stage and everything like that, it's not building an audience. It's building, as you say, a tribe. I'm not out there marketing my book every day, my non-existent book. I'm not out there, pushing my non-existent book every day. I mention it often, but I'm also posting stupid cat pictures. Actually, I don't think I've posted any cat pictures, but what you're looking for is people that vibe with you, right? People that, get you. You get them, you interact with them. When somebody mentions a success, you're commenting on their posts too, saying, congratulations. Because if you were building an audience, you're just kind of collecting people around you, whereas you want to actually interact with these people back and forth, not just them coming to you.
I interact and vibe with a whole bunch of authors who write in genres that are nothing like mine. I've been able to make connections with these people, and it's expanded not only what I'm reading and made me a more active reader, but it's also shown me that what I'm doing isn't necessarily the only way that things can be done. I like to be open to seeing these kinds of different ways of approaching craft, marketing, of even being a human being. It is something that I did not think that I would feel comfortable doing, but the more I do it, the less freaked out by I am.
Sure,
I'm not
sure.
saying I love it, but I'm less terrified by it. It does feel sometimes like I'm doing that in lieu of the writing. There are nights I come home from work. The last thing I want to do is write, and I'll just go, oh, I'll just doom scroll through Bluesky. And I'm doing that instead of getting this idea that I might have actually had on the way home down onto the page. So it can also be a distraction, isn't as constructive as I delude myself into thinking that it is.
It really is easy to be distracted with, especially when you understand that you do need to be active on social media. When I sit down at the computer, my first instinct is to check Bluesky and Threads and Instagram. And then, if I find myself down a rabbit hole, it could be an hour later and it's like, whoops, I was only supposed to be doing this for 15 minutes and then I was supposed to be doing something else like my real job or writing. It's so easy to get distracted like that, which kind of circles us back around to what's going on with, in between the times that you're actually putting fingers to keyboard and writing. Those are things that are not writing your book. They're not really even contributing to your book so much, but you are making an author presence. And so I can say, for example, I might go down a research rabbit hole. That's writing adjacent, right? You can do these things because some part of it is going to make it into your book.
Yes. I spend a lot of time on Google Street View because I'm writing in an era that was captured on Google Street View. I can put myself right where these people are and I can see, well, that's what that block of Ludlow Street in New York looked like in, the summer of 2009 or the summer of 2007. Here are all the shops that were there then that aren't there now. And that is actually incredibly useful for me. But at the same time, I can also fall down that rabbit hole because then I'm not looking at places that are in my book. They're places that I used to live, for example. It's so easy to get distracted. I don't even have ADHD and I can get distracted extremely easily.
I write in the 1950s and 1960s, so Google Street Maps are not a rabbit hole that I tend to fall down. Do you remember that? What is it, like JCPenney catalog historical website?
That was fantastic.
That is a rabbit hole that I have fallen down because those catalogs go back like to the 20s, I think.
Yeah, they do.
So I found myself, oh, let's see what this character would have been wearing in 1961. I start with the fashion, but then I start falling down I go to the toy section.
Mm-hmm.
And not for the 1960s. Well, I mean, I still go to the toy section for the 1960s, but if I'm looking at like 1980s catalogs, then I flip to the toy section. I'm like, oh my God, I had that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Whatever happened to that? I'm sure it's worth bucks now.
To our listeners, if you couldn't tell that you have two Gen X losers here, now you know. The research is definitely an important part of writing. Not allowing yourself to just get sucked in is really important.
I'm not sure there's ever been a time that I have not been sucked down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. The internet was made for suckage in many ways. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the other part of being a writer, which is also being a reader and finding the time to read widely enough in your own genre, but also in other genres. That's something that as I've written more, I've found that I have less time to do the kind of active, immersive reading that I used to, which I don't feel is a good thing. I want to find more time for it, but a lot of times I am literally reading a book while I'm drying my hair. Like that's the time that I have during a day. It's not enough time. I need a vacation where literally all I do is read.
I always say when I go on a vacation that, I'm going to get through like 3 books now because I'm going to be sitting on the beach somewhere, and that never works out, honestly.
No.
It's because you spend time with your family or whatever. I have found audiobooks to be helpful. My only problem now is I don't drive as much as I used to because I work from home. If I'm driving somewhere, driving to the airport or something like that, I can get through a lot of an audiobook, and or if I'm sitting on an airplane, right, like listening, I can do that
Yeah.
too. And that saves me from buying the Wi-Fi uh, thing too. So I find myself listening to more audiobooks nowadays because you're right. It's so hard to find time to sit down with a book. My reading time usually comes at bedtime, where I try to get through like an hour of reading, but it depends on how the day went. So I might just fall asleep with the e-reader in my hand.
My problem is that I listen to a lot of podcasts during my commute. I
Yeah.
am one of those lucky people who gets to have a wonderful Los Angeles commute every day.
Yeah, how are you not getting through an audiobook a day then?
Uh, in addition to writing my book, I am also a 90 Day Fiancé super fan. But getting back to talking about reading, comps is a topic that I think that we will be covering in the coming months.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on comps. Yeah.
Yeah, I have many thoughts about comps as well. And also, I have many thoughts about other people's thoughts about comps and how contradictory some advice is out there. Some agents say, oh, comps are crucial, and some go, whatever. We'll talk about it later. But I do try to read in my area simply because when I start out on a project, I think I can't be the only person who's ever written something like this. The terrifying thing is when you find a comp and it's a good comp, but the book itself is terrible. This has happened to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
oh God, what am I doing? Does my book suck too? We have a segment that we would like to establish, Book World Drama Watch. If you are in any bookish spaces online, you will know that there are many people with many bad ideas and bad takes, and many people have social media that they want to share those bad takes on. And sometimes people absolutely deserve the criticism that they get. I will admit to being slightly addicted to the internet dramas without taking part in them because I like to cosplay as a nice person online.
Whereas I am so high above all the drama, it's beneath me to even no, that none of that's true. Of course,
Absolutely not true. It's Kirk who
revel.
always tells me about all the drama. So. Look, you can't take two forum trolls and not have them be interested in the dramas. There are any number of bookish dramas going on at any one time, but the one that caught our eye is Audra Winter, who is a first-time author who has just self-published her first novel, The Age of Scorpius.
She wrote this book over the course of 10 years. I think she started when she was 12 and she released it when she was 22, I think. And you know what? Kudos for finishing
absolutely.
a book. I don't care if it was 10 years or 20 years. The problem with it was that she was very, very good about marketing this book before she released it. It was like, the artwork, the vibes, her kind of passion around the project. All of this got BookTokers very interested in this book. And so she had 6,000 pre-orders.
Yeah, it was amazing for a first-time unpublished author to get that kind of buzz.
And here's the thing, not a word printed, like not a word in these books released at the time. It was all visual. So, she had no ARC books out there. I think she did say that she had beta readers, but there were no advance reviews, anything on this. So she got 6,000 people to buy this book based on just the vibes alone.
It's incredibly impressive, to be in a space like TikTok and get that many eyeballs.
Yeah.
And get people that excited that they want to read your stuff. And we'd all die for that, kind of hype. But when you set up those kind of expectations, you really need to deliver.
Yes, absolutely. For a lot of people, she did not deliver. I have read the sample pages on Amazon. I think my take on this is, this book needs more work. You and I were just talking about this morning that the maps in there, the illustrations are fantastic.
Beautiful.
Right? The production quality of these books is fantastic. So
yeah.
she well done on that. But I think the prose probably is not where it needs to be. And so, a lot of TikTokers kind of drug her for that. And let me just say, in her defense, I don't even know if it's in her defense, But if you are buying a book based on nothing but visual presentation, I kind of think that's on you too.
I
Right?
agree with
Like,
you.
I'm not going to throw this totally on her shoulders. She definitely probably should have put some more editing work into this. She said she hired editors. If she
Yeah.
did, I don't know. I think it needs more editing.
Yeah.
Again, from the samples that I saw, and also from a lot of these TikTok videos, I think people hit her the hardest on just basically it's confusing. There's spelling mistakes. There's editing errors. There's like sentence construction issues, things like that. And so it sounds like it really could have benefited from editing. But you know what? Too, if you're buying based on the vibe alone, it's kind of on you too.
To me, it looked like somebody who got carried away in the marketing aspect of her book. We were
Yeah.
talking about the importance of establishing a tribe, and she certainly did that. But it's not just the marketing, it's not just the selling. And she described herself as an entrepreneur, which before she described herself as a writer, which to me kind of is kind of ass backward, but
Yeah.
if you lose sight of why you're trying to sell a product in the first place, well, you need a product. If all you're selling is puffery at the end of the day, people are going to be disappointed. That's why I'm setting extremely low expectations for my own work so that nobody is disappointed
Yeah.
when they read it. And maybe a lot of this comes from youthful exuberance, and I am old and crusty and jaded and like to delude myself that I know better. It's easy to get caught up in hype, in your own hype,
Hmm.
and keeping clear eyed when there's a hubbub around you can be very, very hard. My criticisms here are not for the author herself, who I think it's amazing that she has created this universe that she feels so passionately about, that she's been working in for a decade. That is amazing. Writing a book, even if it's not great, is such an achievement. It's just being ready to put that thing out in the world.
Yeah.
And how do you know when you're ready? And that's a whole conversation for another time. But
Well, this might be a hot take too, because I know that some indie authors will disagree. There's this line between traditional publishing and indie publishing. If you're an indie author, there's so much on your back that you need to take care of, and editing is one of them. And if that means you need to hire an editor, obviously that comes with some privilege, right? Like that there are some writers who can't afford the best editors, right? And some writers that just can't. And I get that. But if you're gonna put a book out there, you need to put out the best book that you can put out. And so that might be taking time on editing more yourself, especially if you can't afford an editor. But maybe you might know somebody who, can kind of fill that gap, or definitely like listen to your beta readers. If your beta readers are telling you, look, this first chapter just is not grabbing me, then that's something you need to work out. And I bring that up because I think that was one of the really big things that she was hit on, was her first chapter just was not going anywhere. In TradPub, of course, you have editors at the publishing house who will be working with you. You have an agent looking over your manuscript, helping you get it in shape as well. So as a trad publish writer, you get all that. I use finger quotes for free, but as an indie writer, it kind of falls to you to make sure that you are delivering a really good product.
yeah, and I really genuinely do hope that she learns from this experience. She's pulled the book. I understand she can't pull the paperback versions that are out there, but she's pulled the ebook version to do more edits. And I'm glad that that's something that she's taken away. One of the things that she was saying was that people were having problems understanding what was going on in her book. And there was a comment that I saw on TikTok where someone said that she needed a better intro to the book, a better hook. And her response was, "My hook is my world," which I'm sorry, I couldn't stop laughing.
No reader is going to accept that. No agent, no editor, no publisher. That's not your hook.
Yeah. No. We all like to think that we are special star children. We're not. We all suck, and we're all trying to get better. And if people can't understand what your writing is about, that's a you problem. That is something that I have had to learn too, that I can also confuse people very easily. And learning how to explain your world without using too many words is part of craft. It just makes you a better writer. So do it.
My final take on this too is, there were some pretty nasty TikTok videos and comments out there. And you know what, people, like, be nicer. Jesus. She definitely deserved to be criticized for this book in a literary way, right? Like, and I'll say this again, man, if you bought this on nothing but vibes and pretty images, because the images were really nice, like the bookmarks and stuff, like very well done, very well done. If that's the only thing you bought it on, then it's on you, quite frankly. So don't be mean.
Be nice. This is too reformed internet trolls
I
telling you to be nice on the internet. Coming on autumn season of my life, I am trying to be a nicer person on the internet and not say every hot take that occurs to me. I have many of them. I save them for Kirk, though.
Yes.
I may not have written it, but I certainly have thought it.
So that's our drama hot take, yeah?
Yes, that's it. I've been trying not to burp, by the way.
Yeah.
Thanks again for listening to Bad Lit Friends debut episode and listening to our hot and occasionally correct takes on all things bookish and writing, and for indulging us in our attempts to remain relevant as we age not so gracefully. You can find us on Bluesky. We're Bad Lit Friends. We're also on Threads, I believe, now as Bad Lit Friends. We are eventually going to have a website, badlitfriends.com, but if you go there, you're not going to find anything. The usual subscribe when we have the capacity for accepting comments. We want to hear your comments. You can also comment on Bluesky, where I will likely see them because I don't go anywhere else, but Kirk may see them in other places. He's much better about this.
I'll see them on Threads.
Yeah, he'll see them on Threads. Just to give you a little teaser for episode 2, we talk about book 2 and what it's like to approach your second book after you've written your first one.
Fantastic. I'm excited to hear what our opinions are on that.
Yeah, I'm excited to think of some opinions about it. Thanks again for listening to Bad Lit Friends, and we will see you next time.
Bye.